I'm going to go over just a couple of things that you need to get started, and keep in mind that I'm mobile, so I'm bringing my supplies many times to painting groups in various locations, so it may vary a little bit in your case if you're going to just do this at home and not have to haul stuff. The first thing you need is some good paper, and I would recommend that you get Arches. This is 140 pound and it is 100% cotton. That's really important because it has good tooth on it. The paint, when you put paper or water and paint on it, it kind of soaks in a little bit and you can move it around. Where cheaper paper that's not 100% cotton, the paint and the water lay right on the top, and it moves on you, and it can be very, very frustrating. I did that when I first started, and I was ready to quit because I couldn't get it to do anything. And I switched paper, and it was a game changer, so I was glad I got that advice. This particular one comes on a block. It does come in pads also, so you can tear off, piece by piece. This one has you'll see at the top here, it has it's glued here. So it's glued all the way around, so I don't need to tape it down or anything. And then when you go to take it off, there's a little, you just pull it off there with a palette knife. And this is a very good quality paper, and it won't buckle on you as much. If you use it as a single sheet, you do need to tape it down. So here's an example of one that's taped on a board. This board I got at Hobby Lobby. It's got a little handle at the top, so that helps with making it a little bit more mobile. And the tape that I use on this is called artist tape. And the nice part about artist tape is white, so it doesn't detract from your picture. I found it really difficult to use that blue tape. My colors were always off. But you can use painter's tape or any kind of tape that is wide enough to hold it down. You have to be a little careful when you use the other kind of tape that it doesn't tear your paper. So usually people will press it up against their shirt or their pant leg or something, get a little lint on it so it doesn't stick down as tight. And then make sure that you've got this edge pushed down tight. Sometimes if I'm doing something small, I'll just put it on one of these clipboards, and this one will be a card. And when you put that tape on, if you put it on, just right, you'll have a little edge. It'll look almost like it has a frame around it. So that's kind of fun to do, especially with cards. Then you need something to put your water in. And I like a mayonnaise jar with a tight fitting lid, or any jar with a tight fitting lid. Sometimes I'll take two of these so that I have one for clean water and one for dirty water. I like them bigger if I have room, because then I don't have to change the water quite as often. The other thing you need is paint, and primary colors. Red, yellow, and blue will get you started. There are a lot of nice starter kits out there that you can use, and you can pretty much make any color you want with these three colors of paint. The other color that I found especially when I first got started, was Payne's Gray. That one, it already is kind of dark, so you don't have to put as much paint together. And these are 15 milliliter or 0.5 fluid ounces, and that's how big they are. By comparison, here's one that is, this is 0.17 fluid ounces or 5 milliliters, and you can see the difference in the size of the lids. I like the fat lids because they're easier to get on and off, and I use these to fill up my palette tray, and sometimes I use them fresh. It depends on the kind of painting that I'm doing. And you'll notice I have several different brands here too, and these are all artist grade professional brand. Student brand is fine. You can get some pretty good results with student grade, but you need to remember that it dries a lot lighter than what you think it's going to. And even this paint dries lighter than what you think it's going to. You always have to plan on that a little bit. Then I use a sprayer. This one is a fine mist sprayer, and it will You can spray areas of your paper to get it wet. I do have a big one too. I have a couple different sizes, but I use that one probably the most. Then you need some brushes. And here I just have an example of a couple of brushes, and really you could get by with this. I have a flat, and you can use the flat, flat side down like this, or you use the edge, or just run it like this. You'll have to get to know your brushes. Then I have a smaller round. This is a size 8, and this is an 18 large round. And you use the smaller brushes for small spaces and the bigger brushes for big spaces. That's pretty much how that goes. And then I have a big wide one that you can just get something like this out of the garage, because you can get your whole, if you want to get your whole paper wet to start with, which I often do, this goes a lot faster. And sometimes if you just use like your big round to get it wet, it's dry before you get started painting. Then you need a palette. And sometimes if I'm just going to use the paint directly out of the tubes and mix them together, I will use something like this, which is just a piece of plastic that I got out of a broken picture frame. And it's nice, especially if I have one color that I want to work on especially, and I don't want it to mix in with my other stuff on my palette. Although when you see my palette, you'll see it's very messy, so it's not like I'm trying to keep clean or anything. And generally what you do is you put your paint in here, and then you use your sprayer, and when you spray on these and let them sit for a minute or two, they all come back to life. The nice part is they don't run and leak. So this particular palette has a couple of spots in the middle. It has a nice, number of wells to put paint in. And then it has this tray, and this tray comes out. I don't know why it's sticking it. There. And so I can have 2 trays. I don't hardly ever use it though, although I have had if I'm doing a big complicated thing. And then it has this rubber that runs here, so when I close up to go home at the end of the day, it does not leak all over. There's a couple of other things you might want that I use kind of regularly that I'll share with you. They're not necessary. Here is some masking fluid, or drawing gum they call it. This one I like because it's kind of a light blue color, and it will kind of tell where it is, although they have clear stuff and they have white stuff, and they all have their place depending on what you're working on. The other thing that you use with that is here's a masking fluid brush, and you don't want to use your good brushes when you use masking fluid, because the masking fluid gets hard on there. And if you put a little bit of water in this and just rub some liquid soap in it, it cleans right up. But these are always acrylic, and the bristles are kind of little stiffer, so it is helpful to have them, even though you just can use any old brush if you have something that you don't use anymore. The other thing that I have that I like is this little block, and you see there's some paint on there. I just took a piece of old 2x4 that was laying in the bin out in the garage and covered it with glued this on, this shelf liner paper. So when you go to put something, if you need a little tilt, you can tilt it, and you can set it up, get a lot of tilt by setting it up on end. And I find I use those a lot. I find them to be really handy. And I have a tackle box here, a 2-sided tackle box, and I keep stuff in here. All my goodies are in here. Here's some Mr. Clean sponges. I cut them up and put it in there, and I rip pieces of these off. If you make a mistake where you need to take all the paint off, or almost all of it, these are good for fixing that kind of thing up. I have a nutcracker in here, and the nutcracker is I use this to get the lids off, because I tend to get the lids on there crooked when I put them away, and I can't get them back off again. And then the little nut things, sometimes I use those to make lines where I want the paint to seep into the lines and make some texture. Then I have a a pencil sharpener in there too. I have a couple of erasers, a rubber one and a kneaded one. I have a piece of graphite paper so I can use it for tracing. I have one of these rubber things that helps you get the masking fluid off. And I keep a straight edge razor in there, just if I need to cut something or to make little flecks in the water and take some to get back down to whites, that kind of thing. That's the one side. The other side is not too remarkable. I keep my masking fluid brushes, some pencils, a variety of sizes. I have these two things. This is called a ruling pen, and it's adjustable, so I'll use this sometimes to make fine lines, and also this, which is a embossing tool, and it has it's kind of rounded on the end. I don't know if that comes in focus very well. And this is really kind of nice to be able to put on like whiskers on a cat or an animal or guitar strings or something really tiny. And here's some more masking fluid. It does come in a tube like that. And this is also a tool to be used for masking. And then I have some scrubbers, which these, you get the paper wet and then you scrub off a little paint and then wipe it off, and this helps sometimes get rid of a hard line. And I use those pretty regularly too. I have a bunch of sizes. I just have put the one in here to show you because I've got out using them right now. So one thing that I'd like to mention about the brushes is you never soak them in you wash them out and then let them dry flat. You do not want them to soak in there because this part, the ferrule, these hairs are glued in there, and if you soak them too long, then those hairs start falling out. The glue comes loose, and sometimes everything comes out of here. You can pull on it and they'll pop right out. So you don't want to ever soak them in water. Just get them wet and to the wetness that you want, and dry them flat when they need to be cleaned. And I think that's all you need for right now. Bye.